Thanks very much, Alice, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody on the presentation. It's lovely to speak with you all. I am technically challenged and therefore was unable to put my location in where I am located, but I'm sitting in a very sunny Maun at the moment, just as we start exiting our winter, which I'm very excited about because we nearly froze, and heading into spring. But I look forward to talking to you about Lua Plain in Zambia and a little bit more about King Lewanika and the incredible updates that we have managed to achieve in this area and the lodge in the last 3 months or so. So just to show you a little bit where Lua Plain National Park is relative to the rest of the tourism hotspots in Zambia. What you can see in the center of the image is the aircraft. That's the capital city of Lusaka. The other main tourism entry point is Livingstone, and these act generally as your main entry and exit points to the country. Zambia is actually bounded by 8 different African countries, so it really is a very central and massive country in Africa. There are more than 20, there are 20 in total national parks in Zambia itself. And Lua Plain is the most western of all of these national parks, all the way out in the very west of the country, very close to the boundary actually of Angola, which is just in the green-gray area to the west. And this is a national park that generally hasn't been visited very much over the years. And it really was a park that was struggling until African parks came into the picture. So African parks came into management of Lua Plain National Park in 2003, and it was their very first park that they went into partnership with the government on, and the Royal Barotse establishment, the community elders and the community authorities in that area. And they now have got 23 national parks under their care. But when they first began in Lua Plain National Park, it was actually on the brink of collapse, but they have over the past 22 odd years managed to restore it to being possibly one of Africa's greatest wetlands, certainly one of the most important bird areas and national refuges for a variety of species. And it is really quite a unique area that I'll explain to you and show you pictorially in a few moments. So one of the big challenges with parks that are this far away from the center where the people are actually going to be coming from, being Lusaka or Livingstone, is access. And what is nice about Zambia is that there are a variety of incredible access points into the country, whether you're coming in from Qatar or you're coming in with Kenyan or Emirates or Ethiopian Airlines. It's very easy to access. And there's also access that comes up from South Africa on a daily basis, being both SA Airlink as well as the Zambian registered flight company called ProFlight. But access from Lusaka into Lua Plain was something that we really needed to work very, very strategically on. So we have worked on a schedule where we have 2 flights weekly that are going in on a scheduled basis from Lusaka. They either depart on Monday or they depart on Friday. And then when it comes to coming back from Lua back to Lusaka, these flights depart on a Monday and they depart on a Thursday. Now, why did we do the access this way? Well, the reason is very easily explained. When most guests fly from so far away, you are forced to do an overnight in Lusaka before you travel out. But by doing our timings in this manner, if your guests arrive by midday, they will be able to be in Lua Plains on the day of arrival by 5 p.m. and still have time for at least 2 hours of game drive on their first evening. When departing Lua back to Lusaka, we actually keep the aircraft on the ground in Lua Plain National Park. And this allows us on the day of departure to depart from Lua and get back to Lusaka by midday, which basically is perfectly in time for you to, one, either jump on an aircraft if you're going back home again internationally, or 2, jump on aircraft that are either heading out to other national parks in Zambia that are of high demand, namely Lower Zambezi or South Luangwa. We do provide access from Livingstone into the park itself, but that is not on a scheduled basis, and I'll explain how that works in a moment. So when looking at the rates of the lure experience, it's very important to point out that the accommodation price at rack rate is about $1,200 odd US dollars per person per night sharing, 3,600 for the 3-night package. But the extras is where the flying is incorporated, as well as the park fees and the community and conservation levies itself. These rates are essentially non-marked up from our point of view, and that's why we've separated the rate so that it's very clear what is actually marginable, being the accommodation aspect itself from an agent markup perspective. So I mentioned a second ago that we will very gladly take guests from Livingstone. And generally what happens is, if you do want to start your departure from Livingstone, we then just rework the flying based on how many guests there are. And if there are fewer than 4 guests, generally an extra cost might apply. But if there are more than 4 guests, then the price of the actual flying component actually comes down. And if your market is actually more self-drive oriented, then we are more than happy to take the flying rates out completely for your guests that might be self-driving into and out of the park, which we've actually noticed is reasonably prevalent in Zambia, certainly on the growth. So looking a little bit more into the actual experience now for guests, it's really important to understand the ecosystem. So Lure Plain is basically bounded on both sides by 2 river systems. The river system in the west is the Lewanika River, and the river system in the east, the other bright blue line that I've highlighted over there, is the Lewanika River. Where the red circle is where King Lewanika is actually located, at the very top of that riverine system. That smaller river is called the Munde River, and the Munde drains into the Lewanika, which is then a tributary that drains into the Lewanika, and then it meets the Zambezi River, which is that snaking channel you can see to the east, close to the yellow line, and the huge Zambezi floodplain into which these 2 rivers actually flow. So Lure is actually a huge grassland system. Massive grassland. You can see the curvature of the earth. There's so much open grassland in that area. And how does this grassland come to be? Well, the explanation of that is that the river of the Zambezi River at the period between December and March, which is when we get most of our rain up in this area, swells so much with water that it's very difficult for the Lewanika and the Lewanika River to actually drain into it. And in fact, what happens is that the Zambezi River pushes back up these 2 rivers into the plain itself, and all that water spills out into the floodplain itself. And because those areas are inundated with water for up to about 2 to 3 months of the year, trees can't survive other than on small little islands. And that's how this area has become a grassland. The woodlands themselves are also very different to other parts of Africa, very, very different to the rest of Southern Africa. And it's almost like it's a mix between East Africa and Southern African woodland species like raffia palm trees, mabola plum trees, and then the Southern African woodland waterberry is actually mostly seen on these islands themselves. And this is what I mean when I talk about the curvature of the earth and the extent of the grassland itself. It goes for miles and miles and miles. It really is an incredibly beautiful sight. These are just recent images that we took at the beginning of May, actually the middle of May. You can see that our game drive vehicles actually have seats on the top of them. And what better place to be situated to enjoy this incredible view from than to have a little elevation. So the Lure Plain National Park is enormous. It is 1,300 square miles, 3,370 odd square kilometers. And we are essentially nearly all alone. We have this entire national park to explore most of the year just by ourselves, and our lodge takes a maximum of 15 guests. Unlike other parts of Zambia, like South Luangwa and Lower Zambezi, which are much busier national parks, and you do encounter much more vehicles and other guests, this area is largely unexplored, and that's what one of the main wilderness attractions to the area for us certainly was. There are more than 30 lion in the park now. It is the second largest population of migrating wildebeest on the continent, numbering in excess of 45,000. They're good populations of cheetah and nice populations of wild dog now, and a variety of other species. Our largest and most dominant predator in the area is actually hyena. There are a lot of spotted hyena in the area, and we do have some very rare species and mammals such as this oribi and serval, which are both very common in a grassland system like this. There are more than 350 species of birds, including some really lovely rare ones, which I really love seeing. Denham's bustard, it's probably one of the more beautiful bustards. There are grey-crowned cranes and wattled cranes, and the grey-crowned cranes are certainly in huge numbers, and they are estimated to be in and around 8,000 to 10,000 wattled crane. It is the largest breeding center of wattled crane on the continent. These grey-crowned cranes, just to tell you a funny story, I love these birds, and they amass in these beautiful flocks of like 30, 40 at a time. But it's not a very intelligent bird. It can only count to one. And the reason I say that is because when they fly overhead, they always fly low. You have 30 or 40 birds flying over, and all you hear is one, 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 one as they fly. A really beautiful call. So just looking at a couple of other images of the wildlife in the area. These are obviously wildebeest as they come in. Spotted hyena, good lion populations. Excellent zebra populations, which often follow the migration, the zebra themselves, following the wildebeest. The grey-crowned crane, and then obviously now into the wildebeest migration itself. What's really lovely about this migration is, unlike East Africa, where the migration follows a massive over a massive area and takes a year to get back to its same point again, covering vast distances, this migration is very compact. And the migration arrives in the King Lewanika area. You can see King Lewanika is highlighted in the image itself in the southern part of the map. This migration arrives in and around the second week of October. They stay in the area up until around about the beginning of May. And from May, they start moving further to the north. So the ideal time to come to King Lewanika, if you want to see the migration in the south, is between the months of October and May. And for other guests that are traveling at other times of the year, when they do come through, we have an option to follow the migration with an optional sleep out experience where we set up a mobile camp all the way up in the north of the park. You can imagine departing camp in the early morning, game driving through the national park, spotting eland, spotting tesserae, spotting a variety of other species as you make your way north, and you have a huge picnic basket and drinks. You game view all day, and then you arrive in the late afternoon at your mobile camp, which is set up on a beautiful treed little island. You camp out, have a wonderful meal cooked over the fire for you. And then the following day, after viewing the migration and exploring around where they're traveling at that time, you make your way back down to the lodge again in the evening to have your last night in the camp itself. So wherever this migration is, we're able to navigate our way around to give our guests the best opportunity to encounter it. So when this migration arrives in the south, unlike the East African migration, where you can have this huge agglomeration of animals moving together, what's characteristic of this migration in our area, at least, is that they travel in groups of 200 to 300 at a time. So you'll be sitting in your vehicle, and out to the east, you'll have a group of 100. Out to the west, you'll have a group of 50. Somewhere up in the north, you'll see a group of 200 to 300 rumbling across the grassland plains. and they all eventually conglomerate down in the south. But they can, and the point of what I was saying over there is that they can actually be a little bit separate. So you find that you move from one group to another to see what's happening, and often you'll find that the lion or even a wild dog or hyena will be following groups of wildebeest as they come and go. Now, looking at the lodge itself, King Lewanika is, as I mentioned, at the very top of the Munde River. You can see the Munde River in the right-hand side of the image on your screen. And it is also in front of the lodge itself, snaking its way past the front of the camp. In the middle of the picture is the main area with an outdoor fireplace. That's the main area of King Lewanika. And then there are 3 rooms that radiate on either side of the lodge. There are only 6 rooms, and the family room can take 3 children. So our maximum capacity is 15 guests. Come 2026, we will be having a pool in that area. We have completed our full soft refurbishment. We have completed our brand new game viewers. There are now in-room fridges and coffee stations and an upgraded solar plant so that there's much more freely available electricity for guests. And our fly camp experience is kicking off at the beginning of August to follow the migration now. We are also having an airstrip, and that airstrip is located around about a 10-minute drive away from camp. This airstrip will be fully refurbished in time for the 2026 season. Currently, what's happening is that guests will fly into a place called Kalabo, and then we will ferry guests by helicopter at low level into camp. So a really lovely arrival into the camp itself. Sorry, my computer froze there for a second. So looking at the main area, this is the main area from the front. This is a beautiful lodge that was designed by Silvio and Leslie Resch. This is the interior now by the bar that you were just looking at from the outside. We've completely redone the interiors. You'll find that the palette and the tone is much more earthy, so rich leathers, light timber feel, and a lot of the interiors actually came from local environments and locally found. Out the front of camp, you can see that there's a wonderful fireplace which overlooks these plains to the north, endless plains. And then behind the waitress who's delivering some drinks over there is the dining room itself. Looking a little bit into the rooms now, this is the outside of the rooms facing out onto the view. You can see that the actual rooms themselves, it was really important for us to have a camp that looked out and appreciated the views themselves. So when guests arrive in camp over here, generally we'll have the gauze flaps all the way rolled up as it is in this image over here. And it's left open during the entire day. We don't have troops of baboon that cause trouble in this area. We don't have hippo. There are no elephants in this area. And believe it or not, there are no crocodile in this floodplain as well. Not because they've been killed, but because they just never existed here because the water drains back out again. On the left-hand side of the image, your bedroom with a full wraparound mosquito net. You can just see the corner of the bar fridge in the very left-hand side of the room there. In the middle of the room, there's a wonderful expansive lounge and wardrobe area behind with your study desk. And then to the right of the image is your bathroom with both an indoor and an outdoor shower. So you can see on the interiors here that we have very soft, earthy tones now on the interiors of the camp itself. Really fits in wonderfully with the environment, and that's very much the theme of Downey. Just looking at another image over here. And then the bathroom itself. But again, if you look out on this image, just have a look at that grassland over there. Just spectacular. So in terms of the activities, there's a good variety. We can do game drives by day. We can do game drives by night. And we do also offer walking safaris. Every single one of our activities do travel with a Zambian wildlife scout. And that wildlife scout is always armed. So if your guests want to have a walk wherever they are on the game drive, no problem, we can do that. We've got water activities, which are canoeing, and the canoeing happens mostly between the months of April all the way up until the beginning of July, and then it becomes too dry. We've got great cultural experiences with community visits. We also can go to the African Parks headquarters in the town of Kalabo if your guests are really interested. And back on the community side of things, we are, if timed correctly, we can take advantage and go and enjoy the local Barotse tribe when they have their annual water pilgrimage of the chief from his northern homeland to the southern homeland. We do have the camp out experience as well. The camp out experience is only operating from July all the way through to October as those wildebeest move further to the north. And then we do offer in-room spa treatments and wellness treatments as well for guests. Looking at the vehicles, as I explained earlier on, each of the vehicles have got 6 seats. And then we also do have 3 seats on the top for guests to enjoy that incredible scenery should they wish to enjoy their game drive from the roof. Canoeing is done on the Munde River. Unlike Botswana, where you go out on these makoros, here there's wide canoes, so they're quite stable. As I mentioned, there are no hippo, no crocodile, so you can canoe where you like. The waters are pristine, they're clear, and just a fantastic experience. So for those of you who might be wondering and know Zambia very well, I suppose one of the top questions would be, well, why would Downey start with their very first product over here in Lua? Well, the answer to that is that for many, many years, we have wanted to partner more closely with African parks. We really believe that African parks provide incredible assistance to African governments in terms of maintaining and managing their national parks and resources sustainably, benefiting people, community, and the country at large. We decided that it was worthwhile for us to go into partnership with African parks in Lua, all the way in the west of the country, because we do have desires to expand our footprint. We are looking at expanding into the Lower Zambezi currently. We're also looking at expanding into Livingstone, as well as bringing our own aircraft into Zambia. And we wish to create a central western circuit in addition to the eastern circuit that is so prevalent in Zambia's tourism crown right now. And in that way, help to expand the footprint of product available for guests to enjoy in this incredible country. We do fancy ourselves as being trailblazers, and it's also attractive for us to take on something quite brave, such as Lua. And we've really been impressed with what we've seen so far. And we look forward to building upon the successes of this year with our airstrip in place and all the refurbishments during the course of next year. And we really look forward to welcoming your guests into the camp. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions, and through Alice and also directly into Downey, we're more than happy to answer any queries you might have. Thank you very much, Alice.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kim. That was brilliant. So we've got a couple of questions here. If anybody else has got any questions, please pop them in the Q&A, and we can get to them now. You've got Kim right here to answer them live. Of course, if you think of anything after the fact, I'm the worst for remembering questions. You can, as Kim said, send them over to any of us. So Caroline has asked, is it fenced? So I'm assuming she means the national park.
No, the national park is not fenced, and neither is the camp fenced. So wildlife can and does move through the camp, between the camp. Remember that this national park was set aside by the Barotse kings in the late 1800s as a community national park. And so surrounding the national park, there are 19 villages themselves. And these people do from time to time walk through the national park, or they have small groups of cattle that walk through the park. So it really does have a bit of a feel like you can see in Kenya, where you do have communities, and everybody's really friendly, and the wildlife is thriving.
Amazing, thank you. Marco has asked, during the time when the wildebeest are in the north, July to October, do you still have other wildlife around King Lewanika?
Yeah, So there's plenty of wildlife around King Lewanika. All sorts of species don't follow the migration. There are also wildebeest and zebra that remain that don't actually migrate. And as well as that, there are good clans of hyena. The lion are often in the area, and we do see from time to time cheetah as well as wild dog.
Amazing, thank you. Another question we've had is, what is the distance from Livingston to the camp by car?
That's a great question. What I can tell you is that the worst part of the drive is from Livingston until you get across to a place called Sioma. When you reach Sioma, then from Sioma through to King Lewanika is about a 6.5 hour drive. So I would say in total, give or take half an hour, it's about an 8.5 hour drive to 9 hour drive.
Okay. And Beck has asked if you could please run through the flight schedule and the rate sheet showed earlier. Would you mind resharing your screen, Kim, and showing us that again?
Yeah.
And just running
Just
through.
give me a moment to just get there.
Good.
So, sorry, I'm a typical male. This sharing, this multitasking is very difficult. Let me first share my screen. You can see Alice, and I'll go to the presentation. Okay, so here we are. So basically, your accommodation is the top line, and basically at the rack rate, that's 3,600. The flying, the park fees, the conservation and community levies are part and parcel of the 1,916 rate. The way the flying works is that we have 2 departures per week. There are 3-night departures. The first departure leaves at 1400 hours in the afternoon on Monday and flies to Lua, arriving at 1700 in the evening on the day of arrival. Guests then remain for the nights of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we depart on Thursday at around about 9 o'clock in the morning to get back to Lusaka, which arrives at 12 o'clock. There is a turnaround day in camp for the guys to wash the laundry, etc. And then the next departure leaves again on Friday at 1400 hours in the afternoon, 2 p.m., and comes back again by midday into Lusaka on Monday, when guests leave the actual camp itself. I must stress, though, that if you have a party of 4 guests and these departure dates don't work for you, please let us know, because we're more than flexible to change the departure dates. The issue really is the availability of the aircraft and having that aircraft on the ground for the duration while you're there, so that you can get back to Lusaka by midday to be able to connect either internationally or onto other areas in Zambia itself. I didn't mention it in the presentation, but we do and can stop into Kafui and drop guests off or pick guests up. There is just a diversion charge that comes with that, should guests wish to do that.
Okay, fab. Thank you, Kim. Another question we have had, Rob has asked, is the camp open all year? Oh, sorry, he
No,
just said it's been answered by that image, but do go on.
No, it's not open all year round. We do close it between December and the end of February, generally, although that could be extended depending on the extent of the rains. You do get a much higher rainfall up in that part of the world. It can be up and in and around 900 to 1,000 millimeters. So we do close for that time when that Zambezi River pushes back up into the system itself.
And we've had 2 questions that are fairly similar. Rob has asked, do guests get a private guided vehicle? And Wilma has asked, how many game viewing vehicles do we have? So I suppose that kind of just on the game vehicles and the setup, I suppose.
Yeah, so we've got 3 game viewers. So each game viewer is set up to a maximum of 6 guests. We haven't got a private vehicle on the inventory itself. To be honest, I don't think that we're going to have sufficient demand right now for that to be an issue. So if you do make a booking and you'd really like for the guests to have a private vehicle, we'll more than happily set a vehicle aside for you at a very nominal charge and allow for the private vehicle. But you won't see it on the rate sheet. So please do request it if you really feel your guests would like to have privacy.